our institutions, military and intelligence, and how effectively they have been able to adapt to this new kind of warfare that we're dealing with. It's asymmetrical, we all know that, but it's beyond that. It's not a nation-state war. We're talking about a cultural war. We're talking about a very nimble enemy in that part of the world, which is a lot more sophisticated than a lot of people here want to give it credit for being in terms of how it finances itself, how it communicates with its potential members. Do we have in the government, at the Pentagon and at the CIA, enough people who really grasp the nature of this enemy, have a real sense of the Arab culture and the various players that are out there, because it's not uniform. You know, when 9/11 happened, there was that startling statistic that we had just a handful of Arabic speakers, I think, in the CIA at that point.
I remember after the fall of the Shah and the Carter administration, we had something called the Political Intelligence Working Group that met at the White House, and it was to assess how did we miss a development of such extraordinary consequence. And we went through the level of expertise in the government. And at that time, the Foreign Service, now this is 35 years ago, Foreign Service had 2 officers in Riyadh that spoke Arabic. And they spent 40% of their time squiring around congressional delegations. And it hadn't gotten any better.
Really? Not at all.
I would say that in the military and in the intelligence community, and I see Mike here, Mike Hayden, I think we have the skills and the knowledge and the insights. I mean, I think that the military, I've stayed away from Washington and really don't get involved in anything there, but I have the impression that the military has been pressing for many months to do the kinds of things that gradually, and I think reluctantly, the administration has begun to embrace, about more help to Sunni tribes that are prepared to resist ISIS, to the Kurds, getting more trainers in and at a lower level in the Iraqi security services, forward spotters and things like that, more special operators. I think the military has been recommending these kinds of things, which are an alternative to sort of a big, massive ground force that have the opportunity to enable those who are willing to resist ISIS, and I would say even providing weaponry directly to some of these tribes, Sunni tribes, and to the Kurds to help them because of the challenges of working through the Baghdad government. But I do think we have the talent. I think that the problem more has been a political one in terms of a reluctance on the part of the administration to realize that that this is a major challenge and that it does have a big impact around the world. I would say, though, Tom, that one of the problems that we have that is systemic and has been with us a long time, really since the end of the Cold War, is that we have also, for many years, starved the civilian talent pool in the government, and particularly those involved in diplomacy, in AID, and in strategic communications. And I remember vividly, you know, in the Cold War, and some of you who are a little older in the audience remember, I mean, USIA under Edward R. Murrow and people like that. You had USIA libraries in every major city in the world. You had Voice of America, Radio Free Europe, Radio Liberty. And in addition to this panoply of things on the overt side, you had CIA covertly sending millions of copies of the Gulag Archipelago into the Soviet Union, and magazines and things like that. So you had this Wurlitzer of strategic communications that was a big part, I think, of success in the Cold War. That's all been basically dismantled And that whole big operation now sits in a small corner of the State Department. Those are the people also that you need to rely on in terms of how do you come up with a digital response to ISIS? How do you counter, either directly or through other organizations, the messaging that ISIS is sending to the West, to Europe and to the United States, that's radicalizing some of these people and so on. And we've basically disarmed that part of the national security toolkit.
I want to turn now to China, which is a national